Okay, we're up to Mem Amid Beis. Mem Amid Beis, the Mishnah, right? And it's a difficult Mishnah because there's a lot of, it's a very obscure. We're going to have Machloikis Tanoim in the Amoraim between Rav and Ula, exactly what Pshat is in the Mishnah. So says the Mishnah, Eved Sha'aso Rabbo Apoitiki. An Eved that is Miesta made him Apoitiki. Apoitiki is a nutricon, it's a contraction of three words. Apotehekoi. In other words, when you're going to collect your loan, you're going to collect it from here. When you're going to collect your loan, you're going to collect it from here. Be aware, fellas, there are two types or three types of apoitiki. We'll focus on two. One is stamina apoitiki. So I would say, let's say, I borrow from Chaim. Chaim says, how are you guaranteeing the loan? I said, my stender in apoitiki. The stender is going to be in apoitiki. So the first place is going to collect the stender. Failure to collect from the stender, collect from something else. That's an apoitiki stam. If you say an apoitiki mefurish, that you collect from this stender and only this stender, then you can't collect from anything else. Okay? So a person made this eved apoitiki. In other words, there was a loan, and the eved is the security for the loan. Now, b'shichruhu, and he was freed. Doesn't say who. Doesn't say who freed him. We'll see. Shayris hadin, by the letter of the law, Eina eved chayiv klum. The eved is not chayiv on anything. Eina eved chayiv klum. The eved is not chayiv anything. Now, why should he be chayiv anything? We'll see. Elam ifnei tikkun ha'olam, but because of tikkun ha'olam, koifines rabbi, we force his master. V'oisin I say ben chayrin. He makes him ben chayrin. Because shtar al damav, and he writes a shtar in damav. So there's a lot of words over here, a lot of pronouns. He, this, and we don't know which one is which. Which is again is going to be the Gemara. However, the Eved doesn't write. Who writes is the Meshachrer, the one who freed him. The one who freed him is going to. The one who freed him is going to write. That's what it says. Okay. Now I'm specific whether to first do the start or do the Gemara. I think we're going to do the Gemara. Okay, we do the Gemara. So we're going to fit in on the Gemara. Now, Eved she'asu Rabbi apoitiki v'shechrahu. Okay, an Eved was made in apoitiki, and he was freed. He was meshuchros. He was freed. Mishachruhu, who freed him? Who freed this Eved? Now, there's two possibilities: either the owner, the original owner, or the one, the Adam Sheni, who what we call the Malva, the one who is in this case Chaim, the one who lent would be the one. Those are two possibilities: either the Loiva Rishon, the Loiva, or the Malva. Those are two possibilities. So Amar Rav, Rabbi Rishon. So who freed him? Who freed him? The first master freed him. So he was made an apoitiki. He was going to be the one that you collect from, and he came along. And so now he's freed. So by freeing him now, I guess he's not going to be collected from because he's a free man now. Guys, once he's freed, no longer is he a piece of karka. He's not something that you can collect from, right? He's not a slave. He's not a slave. So now, the Rabbi Rishon frees him. Eina Eved chayiv klum l'Rabbi Sheni. The Eved who's an apoitiki, he is not mechuyev anything what to the second person, to the Malva. He's not mechuyev anything. Kidarava. Why not, guys? How does he stop being an apoitiki? Kida Amarava, Hegdish, Chametz v'Shichror, Mafkia midei Shiba. We've had this before. In other words, if there's a lien on something, there are three ways. But there are three things that would remove that lien: the act of Hegdish, being magdish something. So if you made your shor and apoitiki that you collect from the shor and you magdish the shor, guess what? No more. Off. The lien is off. Chametz, right? That you have that chametz of a shiba to pay from this chametz, right? The guy is going to use your chametz. You're going to collect from this chametz, and or your chametz you're going to pay the guy. It's in the guy's rishus. It's a paitiki, and what happens? Pesach comes, takes off the shibud. You got chametz shavuot Pesach, or shichrur, freeing what we need. So the act of freeing this eved takes off this apoitiki, the lien on the eved. So therefore, he doesn't have to pay. In other words, he doesn't have to pay him. He is not the means of being paid. So now, Shara said then the Eved is not chayiv anything. Because why? Because he's been freed, and that took off the apart to get the shibud. Elam they tikkun oilam, because but of tikkun oilam, which is the reason we bring this in the first place. Shema, what's the tikkun oilam? Here the tikkun oilam is for the Eved. Shema yimtze'ena b'shuk. The second guy will find him in the street. The Malva will find him in the street. The Yoimeloi and say to him, Avdiata, you are my Eved. Avdiata, you are my Eved. And Rashi says, V'yotzi laz al banov. Kiveg has a problem. What about himself? And continues, the Gemara Koifines Rabbi Sheni, we forced the Malva, the one who never really was his master at all, V'oisai ben Chayrin. He should go ahead. What he would makes him a ben chayrin. So in other words, he can't have a taina. 1 second, you're my apaitiki. The kaisiv eved shtar al damav, and the eved will write a shtar on his worth. The word, in other words, whatever the worth of he's roy to be sold, whatever he's roy to be sold as, says the Yam Shel Shlomo, not the chayv, but whatever he's worth, the eved would go ahead and write a shtar. Right, a kaisiv a star on his value. What? No.
The second.
No, Rabbi Sheni is the Malva, the one had been in the one he had been a paitiki to. The one he'd been a paitiki. Now, Rabbi Shimon Gamliel ain't the Eved kaisiv. The Eved doesn't write anything. Ella Meshachrer, the Rabbi Rishon kaisiv. He writes it, okay? He writes it.
Ed would be chayav to pay him?
What?
No,
Ed, he writes a star on his worth, right? In other words, he is because it's chayiv to, I don't know, it's mashma that he has to pay something. It's mashma, whatever he's worth, that's what he's taking a loss, right? He's taking a loss. He's being freed, he's taking a loss, right? So therefore he would write a star on his chayiv. He'd write a star on his value. That's what he'd write. The Ritva says, "Kivin the nena mishtar shechror, mishaliloi." He has to pay off being the chayiv loy, even though he's not really chayiv to pay. But since the other person's freeing him and taking it away, so memela he's going to pay for his freedom. He's paying for his freedom. That's why he doesn't pay the chayiv benji. He pays the chayiv. In other words, his freedom. In other words, what he's worth to be sold in the marketplace. That's what he's gaining, right? The eved. Right, and therefore that's what he pays, but not the chayv itself. The chayv is off. And Rifa says not even chayv to do that, but I'm sure it's adin. Okay, so let's go ahead. Let's look at the first line, guys. We have okay, you have something? Yeah. Unless you have a phone.
No phone. Thank you.
Okay, so Ebed Shas Rabbi Poitki Lacherim Jichro Mahin. Now, first, me who freed him, right? This is Rav, guys. We only did Rav so far. Who freed him? Rabbi Rishon Shu HaLoiva. Well, he's the loiva. He's the one who borrowed the money. So he frees him. That is, everyone agrees. Both Rabban and Rabbi Shimon agree. Who freed him? According to Rav, the Rabbi Rishon. Now, who writes the get shechor? Who writes the get shechor? Who writes right? Who writes the get shechor? That would be that would be the second guy. Why? Because again, that'd be the second guy because we don't want him finding him in the street and saying, 1 second, you're my Eved. So he'd write that. Now, who writes the shtar for his value? According to the Rabbanon, the Eved would write it. According to Rabbanon, the Eved would write it. According to Rabbi Shimon Gamliel, the Meshacher would write it. Okay, that's the machloikus. Now, what's the svaras hamachloikus over here between the two? What's the svaras? According, again, we're doing Rav and then we're going to do the Ula. What's the svaras hamachloikus? In fact, this first guy is being mazik the shibud of his friend. Guy, I'm going to stop the share for a second so people can see me. I go ahead and I say the following: I have a loan from Chaim. I borrow money from Chaim Lax. Chaim says, "Where's my collateral? I have an eved." I say, "This eved is my collateral." Good. I now go ahead and I free this eved. The act of freedom takes off the shibud. It's mafkim de shibud. I have been mazik. I have damaged Chaim Lax's shibud. Am I chayav to pay for that? Am I chayav to pay for that? I'm mazik shibud shel chaveroi. The shibud, the lien that he had, I am mazik it. Are you chayav to pay? Says the Tanakama, you're not. And so therefore, who writes the shtar? The eved. According to Rav Shimon Gamliel, who the Meshachar, why? Because you're the Meshachar, you caused it. You, by being freeing him, you took off the shibud. That's the machlokes between the two. Says the Gemara inside, guys. Okay, says b'may kamifliki. What's as far as the machlokes? The mazik shibud shel chaver kamifliki. If you mazik the shibud of your friend, the masavar Reb Shimon Gamliel is of the opinion chayev, and therefore he writes the he writes the shtar. Umasavar pater, and the other one says, "Well, you're pater." And therefore, the female sure said that ever doesn't have to do it. Okay, that is the itmanami. We've also learned a brisa that substantiates this. Amazik shibud shel chaveroi, but ulamaklokes Reb Shimon Gamliel Rabbanon. Reb Shimon Gamliel says you chayav being mazik the shibud, and the Rabbanon saying you partner. Guys, good. That's the first way to learn pshat in the Mishnah. So let's go back to our Mishnah now and stick pshat in the Mishnah. Ever shasu rabbi apaitiki lacherim shechrahu. And the rabbi Rishon frees him. Because the shibud is taken off. If they take an oilam that the second guy shouldn't come along and say, "Hey, you're my eved," I mean, might see that's the mishpacha. This rabbi, we force the second rabbi. The oisin I say ben chayrin, he frees him. The kaiser shtar damav, and the eved writes a shtar on his worth. Reb Shimon Gamliel eino kaiser el meshachre. The one who writes the shtar is the rabbi Rishon. That is the pshat in the Mishnah according to Rav. Stuck it right back in the Mishnah. Now let's do Ula, and then we'll stick Ula back in the Mishnah. Okay? Ula Amar, Mishichrahu, who frees him? Rabbo Sheni. Now, the Rabbi Sheni really is not his master yet. He didn't default on the loan yet that the Rabbi Sheni owes him. So his freedom, in fact, what? Is not a freedom. Chaim Lax, if we free my eved, is not the owner of the eved because I didn't default on the loan yet. That's what happened. I made the eved at Poitiki. Chaim Lax now goes ahead and frees the eved. That's Shekrar according to Ula. Now, Shayr Sadin, ain't eved chayiv klum. He's not chayiv anything. He wasn't freed. He's still an eved. He's still an Poitiki. However, he's not chayiv anything in mitzvahs to act as a ben chayrin. Meaning, Eved Kanani is mechuyev in mitzvahs keisha. All mitzvahs esesha as van grama, he's potterin, right? So he is not. When he says in chayiv, it has nothing to do with the shtar. He's still not chayiv in mitzvahs because he's still an eved. He's not free. Elam if they tick in an olam, but because of what people are going to say. Of Shem ben Chayrin. After all, the Shem ben Chayrin went out in the world after the second guy freed him. What did we do? What did we do as a result? We now force the first guy to go ahead and free him. The Kaisav Evet Shtar al Damav, and the Evet writes the Shtar al Damav. Who writes it? The Meshachar, the Rabbi Rishon. Okay, guys, let's see it. Let's see it and explain it. Okay? Get up. Second line. Okay? Ula. Who frees him? Second guy. The Malva frees him. Who writes the Shtar Shichrar? The Rabbi Rishon. Who writes the shtar on his value? The Eved writes it according to Rabbanon, and according to Shmuel, the Meshachar writes it. Now, what's the svaras the machlokes between the two guys? Number two is causing a hezek to number one. Chaim Lax is causing me a hezek. What did Chaim Lax do? He went ahead and he freed the Eved. he's really not freeing the Eved because he doesn't own him yet. But he's causing me to free the Eved, and I do own him. He's causing me to free the Eved, and I do own him. Good? So now, this is called Hezek. Now the question is whether it's a Hezek Nikar or Hezek She'enoi Nikar. We're going to see a sugya in this Gemara, guys. Let's say a person goes over, takes a it's Matama Trumasa Shel Chaveroi. He's Matama the Truma. You look at the Truma, it looks exactly the same. It looks exactly the same. The Hezek is not Nikar, it's not recognizable. Hezek Shein and Nikar, Lo Shmei Hezek or Shmei Hezek. So over here we have the same thing. We have a Hezek Shein and Nikar. The Eved is the exact same Eved, except he's free now. Except he's free now. Good? Except he's free now. Now, it must be speaking, Taisa says about an apoitikim mefurish, that in other words, of course, if it's not an apoitikim mefurish, so you don't collect from this, there's no hezek, I'll collect from something else, right? I won't collect from the stenda, I'll collect from something else. But it's speaking dafka the collection from this Eved. So now, Chaim caused me to a damage. Says the Rabbanon, but that damage is a hezek shein and nikah, and therefore you don't write the shtar. Says Ula, says Rav Shimon Gamliel, no, the Meshachra, he's the Adisheni, he has to pay up, right? The Meshachra is he's the one who goes to Hedvad, and he caused the Hezek. He caused the Hezek, so he has to write, he has to pay up. He has to pay up. So guys, let's go through it now again. Okay? So me Shechro freedom, the second guy. And who writes the shtar shikra? The first guy. Why does the first guy write the shtar? Because it was a call went out in the street that this person's free. Now, who has to pay up? Eved pays up. He creates the shtar because why? He's still further free man. Meshachar says no. The person who pays up is the Meshachar because he's hezek nika shmei hezek. Okay, let's stick this back in the Mishnah. Back in the Mishnah now. Eved shasar rabbi and apaitiki la'acherim. And the second person was Meshachar him, and it went out. Shari Sadin ain't Eved Chayiv to do any mitzvahs because he's still an Eved. Because it went out in the world the name that he's a free man. All right, Kaifnes Rabbi, we force his first master, Vaisnus ben Chayrin, the Kaisu Shtar al Damav, the Eved right Shtar al Damav, Rishim Gamlielema ain't a Kaisu Vel Meshachar. So those are the two pshatim in the Mishnah, Ula and Rab. Those are the two pshatim in the Mishnah. According to Rav, the machloikis is whether masik shivudu shel chaveroi. According to Ula, is whether hezek shein and shmei hezek or not. Yes.
Well, why would the malva be mishachra the Eved? That's the source of him. He's getting the loan paid back. He's mazik.
Let's say he did do it. No, this is the mitzias of the case. This is what happened. He freed him. He went ahead and he freed him. You're right. He didn't do the brightest thing in the world, but this is the way he's doing it now. The question is, what did each one not like about the other one, right? In other words, what forced the issue over here? So let's see the Gemara. Okay. The my kamiflagi, what are they arguing again? Hezek sheni nika kamiflagi. Masav of shmei hezek, that the second person caused the damage by causing the first person to free him. Well, Masav and Tanakama shmei hezek, and therefore there's no hezek that he could discernibly pay for, even though he did cause him a problem. So the Eved's going to pay up. Ula, my timer, who Ulu said that the Shichroi was the first guy. My timer Karavu said this Ula says the second guy. My timer Karavu is the first guy who freed him. Amlach Sheni Rabbi Karbasley. Guys, how could you call the Sheni a rabbi? Guys, according to right, what because. Look in the Mishnah, he called the Rabbi Sheni. He was not a rabbi. Chaim Lax is not a rabbi. The Rav, my time like Kula, Amlach Sheni Meshachar Karisley. You call Sheni a Meshachar? He doesn't have the power to free him. So in other words, the Diak in the Mishnah and the Lashon, each one had a problem with the other one. Itmar. Someone, okay, now again, go over one more time. Guys, outside. Outside. There's two types in our Paitiki. There's an apoitiki. This is the first place you're going to collect from. So this is a field, right? Look, this field is the first place that Chaim Lax is going to collect from. If I made it stam and this field's flooded, what does Chaim Lax do? He goes to the other fields. What happens if there's an apoitiki mefurish? It's the only game in town. The only place he can collect from is that. That's it. It's the only game in town. The only place he can collect from. Says the Gemara. Hitmar. The shot for nahar. and the Nahar overruns it. Now this is a new name. Ami Shafir Na'a. His name was Ami, and Shafir Na'a, he was a handsome guy. It's a good-looking guy. Rabbi Yochanan, name Rabbi Yochanan. Ain't a guy from Mishan Nechasim. You don't collect from any place else. You flooded this field. Chaim Latz is out. However, the father of Shmuel says, "Guy from Mishan Nechasim. You collect from all the other properties." Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak Mishum da Ami Shafir Na'a. Just because he's such a good-looking guy, he doesn't say such good-looking pshat in Gemara. Because we say lo yehelecha paroyin elamizu. You know why you only collect, right? When he said to him, you only collect from this field. So if you only collect from that, and that's why in the government Mishar Nechasim. In other words, it was master Avi Shafir no, that no matter what you don't collect. And he says, no, that's not pshat. Pshat, the reason you're not collecting because it was an apaytik game of Forish, and it was the only game in town. You collect more than the chasim. But if he makes it about an apaytik game of Forish, and he says the only place you collect from is there, then you don't collect more than the chasim. Tanya Idach, another brisa, similar. Someone makes a sada and not paitiki. In other words, you're going to collect from here. Well, sisha, and he also goes ahead for his wife. He tells his wife, you're going to collect from here. Right? Then you will be able to collect mishar nechasim. You know why? Because it's an apaitiki. That is what not mafurish. No, balchayv goyim mishar nechasim, but isha ain't a goyim mishar nechasim. Shein dakar shal isha lachzor abatidinim. Guys, even if the isha you didn't make it a apaitiki, guys. If you didn't make it, even if you made it a plating before, she can collect from the field. Look at Rashi, very important Rashi. It says Rashi, if he wants to, you could sell this, and collect from the rest. But Isha ain't going to Dafka, if he put the achrayas on this particular field, and she got married for that purpose. And not that all this property should be achrayit to her. In other words, a woman, you want to keep a woman, guys, out of court. Guys, what are you going to do? This apoitiki, then she's going to have to ding zich and say 1 second, bring proof that this was stolen before this one, that one. So Rabbi Shimon says, no matter what, an isha can go ahead and collect from Shar Nechasim in order to keep her out of what? To keep her out of court. Okay, the next Mishnah is a well-known Mishnah, Machlokes Beishan Beis Hillel, in the following pasuk. If you have a Gemara, it's Vayikra Yutes pasuk Chaf. I'm going to put it up on the screen for those people at home. Okay, I'll touch the pasuk. The ish ki yishka ves isha shichva zera. Probably, if you have an art school Gemara, it's probably on the side in the margin. The ish ki yishka. If it's not in the Amud Aleph, then it's on the Amud Beis. If it's not, guys, it's not in the Amud Aleph, then it's on the Amud Beis. The ish ki yishka ves isha shichva zera. A man has a bia with a woman, and this is a bia of Isser. He shivcha. She is a shivcha kananis. Nechrefes leish. She's a nechrefes is she's associated. And meaning she's designated for a person, an individual. She's designated for an Eved Ivri, guys. Not a Eved Kanani, but an Eved Ivri. An Eved Ivri can marry a Shifcha Kananis if he has children. V'hafte loy niftasa, and redeemed loy niftasa. She was not redeemed. Oy chufsha loy niten la, or she was not given what a shtar shichwer. So 2 things it mentions. 1, redeemed, not redeemed. She gets malchus lo yemusu kilechu fasha because she wasn't freed. Now, on the words v'hafte lo niftasa, fellas, it's redundant. If v'hafte, she was redeemed, lo niftasa, she wasn't redeemed. What does that mean? If she wasn't redeemed, she wasn't redeemed. If she was redeemed, she was redeemed, right? So here we have the very famous pshat v'hafte. She was partially redeemed. But she wasn't totally redeemed. In other words, you had money. Let's say you had money that would go ahead. She was worth $1,000, and you gave 500. So this should be chatzi eved, chatzi baschayrin. she'd be half and half. She'd be half and half. So this is speaking about a woman who's engaged to an Eved Ivri. She is partially free and partially not freed. An Eved Ivri can go ahead and deal with both parts. He could deal the Jewish part because he's a Jew. He can deal with the Shifcha part because he is an Eved. However, she's not an Eishes Shish that you be Chayiv Misa for if you were with her. It's not an Eishes Shish you be Chayiv Misa for, you with her. It will be Malchus and you bring a Karban Asham. And bring a Karban Asham. So this sugya is the sugya of Chatzi Eved, Chatzi Basfarin. Half and half. Half and half. That's the sugya. This pasuk is the pathway to understanding the Gemara. Okay? Let's see. Let's begin. Misha Chetzi of Eved v'Chetzi ben Chayrin. You have a person, there are two brothers or two shutfin, and one frees his half. Oyved es Rabbi yom echad. He works for his master, the one who owns half of him one day. V'satzma yom echad, and then he goes on vacation the next day. Divrei Rabbi, these are the words of Beis Hillel. Beishama yoimrim tikantim es Rabbi. You took care of your master. In other words, the guy who owns him is going to get usage. Ve'es atzmoi loy tikantam, but you didn't help the Eved out. Lisa Shivcha, to marry a Shivcha, Yefsha, Shekvar Chesed ben Chayrin, because of his free part on the base. Bas Chayrin, to marry a Bas Chayrin, Yefsha, Shekvar Chesed Eved, because he's halfway an Eved. Yevatel, so say don't get married. V'aloy loy nivro olam el leper v'rivya. The world was created for what? For procreation. Shenemar, because it says, Lo tahu bara l'sheves yitzara. Was the world created for tahu? What? It's created to be populated. We'll see a Taisus in a second. Why didn't you bring the pasuk of Pir V'Rivya? Why did you bring a pasuk from Yeshaya? Why didn't you bring the pasuk Pru Ravu Milos Eretz Kivshua? So says Beis Shammai, a Gevald Getaina. You help the master who owns him, but this guy is stuck. He can't marry this one. He's in limbo. He can't marry a Jew because he's an Eved. He can't marry an Eved because he's a Jew. Elefei Tikana Olam. Since the Kodesh Baruch Hu, right, wants the world to be filled, right? He wants the world to be filled. That's the Tikkun Olam. Kaifin es Rabbi. We force the one who still owns him. Ba'is ben Chayrin, and we make him ben Chayrin. The Kais Shtar al Chetzi Damav, and he writes a star on half his value. The Chazu Beis Hillel Haris Beis Shammai, and right, and Beis Hillel agreed. He agreed with Beis Shammai. That's what you do. In other words, we don't keep a person in this vacuum. We don't keep him in this limbo. We free him. Okay, before we get into the sugya, guys, if I would tell you where in the Torah does it say Pir V'Rivya, what would you tell me? Gracious, Peru, Revu, Mulas, Kivshua, right? So it says the world was Mitsuim Pir V'Rivya, right? What does it bring? It brings the pasuk of Sheves. It brings the pasuk of Sheves. So there's a few terutzim. Taisus brings 3 terutzim. The first teretz is that if Pru Revu, right? Pru Revu would only be mechayiv as a Jew. A Jew is mechayiv in Pir V'Rivya. A goy is not mitzvah in Pir V'Rivya. But they are mitzvah in Mad in Sheves. They are mitzvah in Sheves. So this person would not be able to fulfill Sheves. In other words, usually Pru Revu is fulfilled by bringing a Jewish person into the world, right? If this is an Eved and that lived with a Shivcha, that would also, we wouldn't be kind of Pir V'Rivya, but it would go ahead and fulfill Sheves. So that's one reason you bring that, right? So therefore we brought that reason in. Another reason is that it's a mitzvah gedola. You hear from the word the Torah the Sheves Yitzara. It was created for the world. It should be populated the world. Very interesting halacha, fellas. This you got to figure this out. A woman mechayiv in Pir V'Rivya. How do you know? Because it says what? Peru urvu milas aretz v'kivshua. People who go ahead and b'chal kibush. It was a mishnah, first mishnah in Mat Masechta. Yevamis. Good, very good. Now, women are mechuyim and sheves. In other words, people have a male child and a female child, and they come in Pir V'Rivya. They're still supposed to have more children. Because Hashem didn't populate the world that should be unpopulated. This thing about the Chinese and about the food running out, all this is connected HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's not what Hashem wants the world populated. If Hashem wants the world to be depopulated, tsunamis can take care of people very quickly. Hashem has ways of population control. But for man to control his population, that's not what Hashem wanted. So therefore, it's a mitzvah gedayla. It's a mitzvah gedayla. Okay, anyway, a little digression. Tana Rabbanan. Hameshachar chatzi avdoi, someone who frees Hameshachar chatzi avdoi, someone who frees half his eved. Rabbi Omer koina. Rabbi says he's koina. In other words, how can who's koina? The eved's koina? Where does an eved have ability to be koina? Rabbi says he's koina. The chachamim oimim like koina. And if you free half your eved, you're not koina. Now, it's not speaking about, fellas, listen to the story. Guys, listen up. There's a reason Rashi said the case of Chatzi Eved, Chatzi Bascharin is he had two owners and one freed his part. If it's one owner freeing half, says Rebbe, it works. Says the Chachamim, it doesn't work. Says the Chachamim, it doesn't work. In other words, if he writes him a shtar shichur on half himself, according to Rebbe, it works. According to Chachamim, we're going to see Machlekes Gemara with the shtar or kesef. Says Rebbe, you're kind of half. Says the Chachamim, you're not kind of half. Says the Chachamim, you're not kind of. Now this is all going to be predicated upon this the pasuk that we saw. It's going to be predicated upon on this pasuk. Amar Rabba, machlokes b'shtar. Says Rabba, the machlokes is when you have a shtar, meaning you freed half of him with a shtar. The Rebbe Savar v'haftei lo niftasa v'chupsa l'nitein la. If you look at the pasuk, it says juxtaposed to each other. V'haftei lo niftasa is speaking about pidyon, guys. V'chupsa l'nitein la is speaking about what? Is speaking about shtar. If we buy half himself, he certainly will be free. Ma kesef ben kulei ben chetzyav. Just like Kesef can free all of him or part of him, Avshtar Nami ben Kula ben Chetzyav, so too Shtar can go ahead and free all of him or part of him. That's the quoting. This is the Rabbi's pshat that the machlekes is by Shtar. Right. Rabbanon Gemiri lo meisha. Guys, it says v'chupsha lo nitain law. It says v'chasav law sefer krisis. Ma isha chetzya loy. Just like an isha, you can't half divorce your wife. Afevinami chetzev loy. Aval v'kesev dibya kol kaina. Right? Because petuya ve'ina petuya. Okay. So guys, says Rabbah, the machlokes what is by shtar. Machlokes is by shtar. Look at the pasuk, guys. Look at the pasuk. Pasuk geschmack. You can learn both things out from the pasuk. Watch. It's in front of you guys on the screen. It's in front of you on the screen. If you have again, what does it say? V'ish ki ish kavish shechva zera shivcha nechrefes the ish v'haftei loy niftasa. Now you weren't completely what? You weren't completely redeemed. You were partially redeemed through what? Through kesef. So we were asking if you take kesef and buy halfway. In my scenario, give it 500, you'd be gone. You didn't give a what? A shtar. So the shtar is hookish to kesef. Just like kesef, you can be halfway free. So to shtar, you can be halfway free. That's according to Rebbe. According to the Chachamim, we have a gzer shava. Lo nitain law. It says by law, and it says by isha v'chasav law, sefer krisis. Just like a woman is not halfway, so to the Eved can't be halfway. But by kesef, even the Chachamim would be minded to Reb Meir that you could have the Metzias. That's the first pshat. That's Rabbi's pshat. What's the svaras the machlokes? Now one has a hekesh and one has a gezer shava. The masava kesha difa. Rebbe holds a hekesh as adif, and therefore I'll learn out shtar from kesef. Just like kesef works halfway, so too shtar works halfway. Umasava and the chachamim hold no gezer shava adifa. The gezer shava of law is ma'adif, and therefore just like a woman can't be halfway, so too an eved can't be halfway through a shtar. Says more like everyone else gezer shava is adif. Now what's the svar of Rebbe? The shiny hacha the ikla mifrach have a kasha on your gezer shava. What's your gezer shava? Mala isha not halfway, so to a woman not halfway. Mala isha shekain any yotze bekesef. Time of ever shares bekesef. You know why a woman doesn't go halfway? Because you can't divorce your wife by giving her what? By giving her money. The Gemara has to have him. You make a shavayli yitzia that you should be able to go ahead and divorce her with giving money, but you can't. And that's why it's not halfway by shtar. By shenkin and ether, which you could go halfway by kesef. also should work halfway by star. So since I have a kasha on that kal v'chaymer, I'm going with the hekesh that says what? Just like kesef is halfway, so star is halfway. Rabbi Yosef, Amar machloikis b'kesef. Rabbi Yosef says the machloikis is b'kesef. The Rabbi Savar, Rabbi holds v'haftei lo niftasa peduya ve'ena peduya, right? And therefore what? Kesef, she's redeemed and not redeemed. Rabbanan Savri, they're Torah Kloshim B'nei Adam. The Torah is just speaking the way what? She's a Shifra Gemura. She's not free at all. Meaning you didn't redeem it. That's being a Chatzi v'Chatzi Baskar. You didn't redeem it all. And therefore she's a full-fledged Shifra. Aval b'shtar, Tivya Kolei Kana. By shtar, we're going to learn law, you're not Kana. So in other words, Machloikis is by Kesef. But by shtar, everyone hold not. Okay, so let's review the Machloikis before we go weiter. You have it on your phone, you have it on your phone, you have it on your paper. According to Rabbi, you have it right in front of you. According to Rabbi, right, the Machloikis is by shtar. Rabbi says the kinyan chetzia why is because of he makes the hekesh between v'haftei l'niftasa and v'chush l'yitain la. The chacham they learn la meisha, but by kesef everyone hold that what that you kaina. Rabbi Yosef says no. By shtar everyone holds you're not kaina. Everyone holds you learn la meisha. Everyone says you would learn you. Everyone says you would learn la meisha, and since everyone says you learn la meisha, you not be kaina. However, according to where's the machlokes by kesef? According to Rabbi, you have the hekish. According to Chachamim, they retire kolashim reyadam. Good. Continues the Gemara. Meisivei hameshachar chatzi avdoi bishtar. Someone who feeds his eved bishtar. Someone who feeds his eved bishtar. Rabbi Yomer. Rabbi says kana. Chachamim loy kana. Now, guys, what do you see? Machlokes is what by shtar. What does Rabbi Yosef hold? By shtar, everyone says loikana. Guys, according to Rabbi Yosef, everyone says loikana, right? Here we have a first brisa that says what? Machlokes is by shtar. Tiyufta, the Rabbi Yosef tiyufta. Knockout. Rabbi Yosef is knocked out. Now let's go. Let's make an inference now in the brisa, guys. Bishtar hu de pligi. Avo bekesef loy pligi. But kesef they don't argue. What does Rabbi Yosef say? Machlokes is by kesef. Guys, it knocks out both of Rabbi Yosef's din, right? The din of shtar, the din of kesef. Amalach Rabbi Yosef, pligi b'shtar v'udim kesef. They argue by both. Why do they argue b'shtar? Rabbi to tell us the koyach of Rabbi that Rabbi by shtar says that what half shtar will go ahead and create half and half. Lifli b'kesef l'diach koyach the rabbanon that I feel half and half not. Doesn't matter koyach the Torah. If it's bigger koyach the Torah to say you're free with half a star than to say that what that you're not free with what with kesef. Tashma, v'haftei. The pasuk says v'haftei. Okay, so we're back to the pasuk v'haftei. The pasuk says, guys, look at here. Got the pasuk v'haftei. So v'haftei is mashma yachal l'kol. I might think that the eved has to redeem himself totally. Hamadleima loy niftasa. No, not totally. Iloy niftasa yachal l'kol. If not niftasa, I might think not at all. Hamadleima v'haftei. Haketzad peduya ve'ene peduya. B'kesef u'b'shava kesef. So you're halfway. You gave kesef or shava kesef, and you bought yourself out halfway. Ve'en liyala b'kesef. That she goes to cheres b'shtar minayin. How do you know she go to cheres b'shtar? Like this is like l'chayr like Rabbi. Tamad leimar v'haftei loy niftasa oichub shelo nitain la. And there is your hekesh. Well, halan oimer v'chasad la sefer krisis. Mala halan b'shtar avkan b'shtar. Just like further on it's shtar, so to here's b'shtar. So guys, look. V'haftei loy niftasa halfway. Oichub shelo nitain la. How do you know chubsha means a shtar? Because it says la. And we learn la meisha that this is speaking about a shtar. So now you have a hekesh. Halfway kesef, halfway shtar. Only other chesed b'kesef, oikula b'shtar. Chesed b'shtar minayin. How do you know half b'shtar? Hamad leima v'haftel and v'tasa. Oichub shel nitain lo. Makish shtar l'kesef. A kesef ben kula ben chetziav. Just like kesef's half and half. Avshtar nami ben kula ben chetziav. Now that's the brisa. Now bishleim the Rabbi Yosef bosses the Tvaisef. Bishleim Rabbi Yosef guys after we slug them up. After you slug Rabbi Yosef, the machlokes is across the board. Sai by shtar by kesef. Hamani Rebbe he. Who's the ton of the brisa? It's Rebbe. Ela Rabba who says that what? That only by kesef, but not by kesef lachatzoyim, but not shtar. Reisha diri akol. The reisha goes according to everyone. The seifa and the sefer that says Bein B'Shtar, Bein B'Kesef would be only according to Rebbe. Guys, the Bryce will be halfway. The first Pshat will be according to the Chachamim. The second one only according to Rebbe. Amlach Rabbi in Reisha Diriyakol v'Sefer Rebbe. Says Rav Ashi Yom Pashut Teretz Rebbe he. The whole thing's according to Rebbe. Sai B'Kesef, Sai B'Shtar. El Maslis in the Tani Misha Chetzi Vev Chetzi Ben Chayrin. Okay, we'll see. Ella Maslis and I'm Mishnah the Tani Misha Chetzi Eved Chetzi Ben Chayrin. Bishleim El Rabba Muki Lo B'Kesef Diriyakol. Rabbi could say it's speaking by Kesef according to everybody. El Rabbi Yosef, Lema Rebbe he v'lei Rabbanon. According guys, Rabbi Yosef when he slugged up, he said the machlokes is across the board. So you're gonna have to say he goes according to what? According to Rebbe and not the Rabbanon. I'm Ravina be'evet shel shnei shutfim v'divrei hakol. Fellas, into machlokes between Rebbe and the machlokes between Rebbe and the Chachamim was one owner freeing what? Half. Either by writing a star on half or kesef on half. Everyone would agree, however, no machlokes if you have two owners and one goes to Edward and frees the half. So our Mishnah is speaking in that mitzvah, so therefore it's a kuli alma, and you're not locked into saying it's according to Rebbe. Good night to all.